As early as 1988, China's military forces started to illegally occupy several parts of the Spratlys archipelago. Fiery Cross Reef, Quaternion Reef, Gavin Reef, Hughes Reef, Johnson South Reef, and Subi Reef. China went on to seize the Philippines' claimed Mischief Reef in February 1995. Ever since, all the reefs and rocks under China's illegal control have undergone extensive construction to accommodate China's modern communication systems and weaponry installations. Since late 2013, China has been pushing its reclamation activities and constructions of dual-use infrastructures to an unprecedented level and with lightning speed. On Fiery Cross Reef, China deployed dozens of vessels working continuously since July 2014. The reclaimed area has been rapidly expanded from 2.2 hectares in August 2014 to 37 hectares in early October, 135 hectares in early December, 265 hectares in May, and continues to expand, turning the reef into an island hundreds of times as large as its original size and 5 times as large as Ituaba, the biggest island in the Spratlys. China continues to build a major military airstrip. Aggressive dredging continues unabated to establish a 60-hectare harbor for large vessels. On Johnson South Reef, construction has been accelerated since late 2013. Chinese dredgers, transport vessels, and barges have been plying the waters to create a 12-hectare landmass surrounded by reinforced seawall. The makeshift housing facilities have been upgraded, and a new multi-story building is taking shape on a 6,500 square meter platform. On Quaternion Reef, the reclaimed area has steadily grown since early 2014, from 0.27 hectares in March to 6.3 hectares in August. By November 2014, China had almost completed ground leveling and building reinforced seawalls around the 23-hectare landmass on Quaternion Reef. What looks like a command structure is under construction on a 6,000 square meter area. On Gavin Reef, China's land reclamation began in May 2014 and swiftly doubled its size from 5.2 hectares in June to 11 hectares in August. As of November 2014, the reclaimed area had been expanded to 14 hectares. Structures are being built on a 6,000 square meter area, while canal is being dredged extensively to allow passage and docking of big Chinese ships and vessels. On Hughes Reef, ground leveling began in late March 2014 to swiftly create an 8-hectare platform by the end of July. Construction of a major building is underway on a 7,000 square meter site. Ongoing construction includes reinforced seawall, passageways, and ship docks for large vessels. On Subi Reef, China accelerated reclamation since early this year. Within a couple of months, the reclaimed area was 20 hectares in February, 140 hectares in March. (315 hectares in May, and continues to expand on high gear. With over 4 kilometers in length, the new landmass at Subi Reef could very well end up as a major airstrip similar to that on Fiery Cross Reef. On Mischief Reef, China has accelerated expansion and construction work since early 2015, creating a 15-hectare landmass by late February, a 300-hectare island in early May, 365 hectares in the middle of May, and could be even bigger right now. The international community shares deep concern over China's unilateral activities in South China Sea. The chairman's statement of the 26th ASEAN Summit in Malaysia. We share the serious concerns expressed by some leaders on the land reclamation being undertaken in the South China Sea, which has eroded trust and confidence and may undermine peace, security, and stability in the South China Sea. The G7 Foreign Ministers' Declaration on Maritime Security. We continue to observe the situation in the East and South China Sea and are concerned by any unilateral actions such as large-scale land reclamation, which change the status quo and increase tensions.
We share a concern about China's land reclamation and construction activities in the South China Sea, and the United States and Japan are united in our commitment to freedom of navigation, respect for international law, and the peaceful resolution of disputes without coercion.
Its reclamation certainly violates the spirit of the 2002 Declaration on the Conduct of Parties in the South China Sea (DOC) between China and ASEAN, and is at best on shaky level grounds. Many international experts voice deep concerns that China's calculation and consequences from its reclamation activities in the spratlys could change the balance of power in the South China Sea and pose an imminent threat to freedom of navigation and aviation in the region.
Okay, Sanya to Woody Island, 700 kilometers. Woody Island to Scarborough Shoal, 650. Johnson South, 900. This means if China uses those 3 islands as a stepping stone, China will be able to exercise its military control, strategic control, and economic control in this South China Sea. This is my
tested area. It expanded land features down there also could eventually lead to the deployment of things such as long-range radars, military, and advanced missile systems, and it might be a platform for them to, if they were ever wanted to establish an air defense, an ADIZ, an air defense zone down there, for them to be able to enforce that from.
These artificial islands could also provide a location for radar and other early warning systems to enhance China's ability to know what's going on in the sea. Many experts believe it is China's intention to change the legal status of a feature now under China's occupation. All the features illegally occupied and reclaimed by China in the spratlys are identified as either LTEs, low tide elevation, or rocks, not islands. Therefore, China's reclamation and construction work on these features shall not give them the status of islands as defined by UNCLOS. However, by reclaiming land, building structures, and inhabiting the occupied reefs and rocks, China has clearly been making up conditions to claim that 200 nautical mile EEZ for China's rocks turned islands in the spratlys, create the overlapping zones into coastal countries' EEZs, and widen the disputed waters in China's favor. By undertaking the reclamation projects, China has essentially destroyed the evidence. Aggressive dredging and land reclamation by China are damaging the maritime habitat and environment. The abusive techniques used by China are in no way similar to the traditional methods of other coastal countries. China is using high-power suction dredgers to suck in sand and rock from the seabed to pour onto the reefs, which changes course of sea currents and passages, seriously jeopardizes biodiversity and permanently damages maritime ecosystem in the South China Sea. In Spratly Islands, China is the only country to build the islands from the entities that were formerly submerged, and the process of construction caused enormous ecological damage. At the annual Shangri-La Dialogue held by the International Institute for Strategic Studies from May the 29th to the 30th, 2015, there was a flurry of negative responses from politicians and experts from different countries to China's attempts to change the status quo.
China has reclaimed over 2,000 acres, more than all other claimants combined, and more than in the entire history of the region. And China did so in only the last 18 months. It's unclear how much farther China will go. The United States is deeply concerned about the pace and scope of land reclamation in the South China Sea, the prospect of further militarization, as well as the potential for these activities to increase the risk of miscalculation or conflict among claimant states.
However, it is deeply regrettable that even at this very moment, vast land reclamation and construction of seaports and airstrips are going on at a rapid pace in South China Sea. There are attempts to try to change the status quo in the East China Sea as well. The countries in the region, including Japan, are concerned about such actions.
We need to maintain a maritime order based on international law, including the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea. We are not getting into the legitimacy of specific claims, but we are resolute as Europeans on how they should be resolved. That is, peacefully, without the use or threat of force. We support the ASEAN-China negotiations for a code of conduct, and we hope they can be concluded soon.
China's representative repeated the mantra that the South China Sea was in peace, freedom of navigation was assured, and China's activities in the Spratlys were very much self-controlled. Apparently, he was overwhelmed with a barrage of counter-arguments that exposed China's shaky standing.
So my question to you, sir, is China prepared to work with the Vietnam and the Philippines in particular on a confidence-building measure of a moratorium on continued landfill? And more importantly from that, given your stated goals of peaceful development and safeguarding fishermen and people on those facilities, is China prepared to commit not to station offensive power projection weapons on those islands? So, 谢谢.
The United States has expressed concern about challenges to freedom of navigation in the South China Sea. And you have stated quite clearly that China's presence in the South China Sea, its operations, its construction, is not challenging freedom of navigation. And yet when U.S. aircraft flew near these land features a week ago or so, China said that these aircraft were entering China's military alert zone. That's not a phrase that I think is very clear under international law. I don't think militaries use it. So I'm wondering if you can explain why you insist that China is not challenging freedom of navigation. And when can China clarify its claim, its dashed line claim in the South China Sea, the ambiguity of which is seen as one of the sources of tension in the South China Sea? Thank you.
It seems to me that you are trying to say that China would uphold the freedom of navigation on the high seas, including in the South China Sea. However, there is a strong concern in this part of the world that China would sooner or later declare its air defense identification zone over the South China Sea, utilizing the Chinese construction on the South China Sea. And in my understanding, the Chinese spokesman does not rule out that possibility. So how do you respond to these speculations? Thank you.
Facing with international concerns, China has repeatedly assured that its reclamation and construction activities does not in any way constitute a threat to freedom of navigation and aviation in the South China Sea, by helping to enhance public services as weather forecasting, marine rescue operations, and other international obligations that China is supposed to perform to ensure security in international waters. China argued deceitfully that its reclamation and construction activities on the features were well within China's sovereignty and did no harm to other countries. That was an obvious wrongful claim, and it is well known that China's used force to seize several of these features in 1988 and 1995 from other countries. China went on to accuse Vietnam and the Philippines of building infrastructure and deploying missiles and other military equipment on new reclaimed features. Obviously, their misleading accusations were refuted by international experts. What sets China's activities apart, however, is that Beijing has been dramatically changing the size and structure of existing physical land features, while other claimants have built upon or modified existing land masses. China's attempts to enlarge features that it has seized by force represented long-term calculation to exercise its illegal claim of sovereignty along the 9-dash line. This runs counter to DOC understanding, causes escalating tensions, undermines prospect for a diplomatic resolution, and poses threats to navigation and aviation safety in the South China Sea. The international community must continue to press China to put an end to its unilateral activities, to change the status quo, take up responsible manners, and respect international law.